All right, welcome everyone. We're very, very pleased to have you here for our Zebra Super Bowl press conference. I'm Therese Van Ryn and I lead external communications for Zebra. I'm very pleased to be joined today by Troy Vincent. Troy is the Executive Vice President of Football Operations for the NFL. We also have Bill Burns to my left. He's the Chief Product and Solutions Officer for Zebra Technologies. To my right, Hale Henkes. He is a channel account manager for Zebra Technologies and a former NFL player. And we have Adam Petrus, who is the business development lead for the sports and entertainment division of Zebra. Before we dive into questions, I'd love to share a little bit of background with you on Zebra. You can see that we have been the official player tracking provider for the NFL now for about 8 seasons. But beyond sports, we serve customers of all sizes, including 94% of the Fortune 100, with a solution and services portfolio, award-winning one. We have solutions, software, services, and hardware that digitize and automate workflows. We have an ecosystem of more than 10,000 partners in more than 100 countries around the world that help us serve our customers. With Zebra, supply chains are more dynamic, customers and patients are better served, and workers are more engaged when they utilize Zebra innovation that help them sense, analyze, and act in real time. Like I mentioned, for the last 8 seasons, Zebra has tracked every player on every team every week of the NFL season. Our solutions will also be leveraged during the Super Bowl. And here's a short video to show you how.
Winning doesn't just happen on the field. If you want to be the best, it takes preparation, strategy, and real-time insights from a company you can trust. And if you want to win, you can't do it alone. You need a team working as one with a singular focus on success. How do you build a team that's ready to take on all challengers? With the power of Zebra. That's how one stadium prepared to turn the biggest sporting event in the world into the ultimate fan experience. Before game day starts, RFID technology and location solutions ensure that everything from chairs to carts to merchandise are where they need to be when they need to be there. Once fans arrive, Zebra Technology powers the in-stadium guest experience with fast and reliable ID badge scanning, efficient point-of-sale systems, and fully interactive stadium tours. The on-field guest experience lets fans feel what it's like to step into their favorite players' shoes as they take the field to punt, pass, kick, and jump like the pros. Our support doesn't stop when the game starts. Our technology tracks every player on every play, so fans and teams can see the game in a totally new way. And we're helping players stay on the field longer with leading-edge analytic insights for injury prevention. When the game ends, we help everyone leave efficiently with greater stadium access control. From kickoff to the final whistle, Zebra Technology is empowering the big game to connect fans and players like never before. Those same solutions are in play at enterprises around the world, enabling greater efficiency, better visibility, and transformational experiences. And with the backing of over 50 years of proven performance, you can count on our cutting-edge solutions to be the MVP of your business.
Bill, we'd love to start the questions with you. Can you tell us a little bit about Zebra's role in next-gen stats?
Yeah, sure. We're excited at Zebra to provide, really insights that haven't been available before. And really it's about, enhancing the fan experience, enhancing the jobs of coaches through performance and key matchups and play calling. It's really about, the health of the players and ultimately to protect their health and to rehab when they ultimately get hurt and come back onto the field. The way we do that is that we track, every player, every football, every game, every week, throughout the entire season. We do the same for teams within practice. And we do that through RFID technology that are tags inside the shoulder pads of the players and inside the footballs. And then the stadiums actually has receivers built in around each of the stadiums, and then teams inside their practice facilities that take radio frequency location data from each one of the players and the ball, and does things like speed, acceleration of player, orientation, velocity of the ball, height, and allows you to be able to track that as data. And then ultimately it's used to enhance, as I said, the fan experience, the coaching experience, and that ultimately of the health of the players, across the league.
Thanks, Bill. Troy, over to you to tell us, please, how has the NFL's partnership with Zebra evolved over the last 8 seasons?
Well, it's evolved. When I first started getting involved on a football operation, it was just one source of data. But Zebra Technology actually, for myself, who's responsible for all game day operation, it's my primary source of data. 2 things I care about the most on game day is angles, video, as it pertains to officiating, and then where's the player and who's involved. So just watching that evolution of just not only tracking the player when we first started, now tracking the ball, but from a performance standpoint, and just watching how the technologies allowed the player and the coach to monitor him. Load management, there was no such thing in the early 90s going into the 2000s talking about load management. But this is what the data allows us to do. So just watching the progression and the evolution of the technology, and now as we start integrating the technology with health and safety, like that, now you change the game. You change athlete performance, you change athletic preparation. So it's been fascinating to watch over the last 8 years. And so I'm dating myself now. But again, my primary data source on Sunday, Mondays, and Thursdays.
That's excellent. Bill, beyond engaging with Troy through Zebra's NFL partnership, we've also engaged with him and his family on their Vincent Country philanthropic activities. Tell us, why is supporting local communities important to Zebra?
Yeah, giving back is really part of Zebra's culture. We think of, really the idea of doing well, overall as a company, by doing good in the communities in which we live and work each day. Partnering with Vincent Country and the work we did this week in an elementary school is just another way to give back to the community. In this case, it's a community really around an elementary school here with, the Super Bowl and here in Los Angeles. So we couldn't be more excited to be partnered with them. And as Zebra, we kind of look at this and say, hey, what are the things our employees really want to engage in? They really want to engage in the local communities, and how do they give back? And that really is what drives our, philanthropy efforts across the company, and just in the idea of time and talent. It's not just money, it's resources, and really our employees committing the time to volunteer at different organizations within their local community. And we love doing the event with Troy, earlier this week.
That's a great segue, Troy, for you to tell us a little bit more about Vincent Country and the Safe Zone activity.
Well, Vincent Country is our family lifestyle brand. I'm one of, I think as of last June, there are 4,200 living Vincents. So 4,200 living Vincents, and we originated, my great-great-grandfather Solomon Vincent, back in North Carolina in 1877. So from 14 children, there are 4,200 living Vincents. So family lifestyle brand. And I just, if I can, just 1 second, just want to say thanks to Bill and Zebra, because it was a choice. It's a choice to be intentional about your philanthropical works and what you do in the community. Some of us, this is what we do, but when you have big institutions and leaders, that's an intentional choice to focus in on, as we would just say, the under-resourced, not the under-resourced. And Bill, my wife Tommy and I, we thank you because you had a choice to do other things, yourself as well, Teresa, and to put efforts in other places. And our Vincent family, our Safe Zone, it's our community today. We identify a local elementary school. So my wife and I have been working through elementary school for about 22 years, really to bridge the educational gap. And finding the right partners that truly care about kids, that's difficult in this time, because people have options, But Bill, you made a choice, and I keep using the word choice because a choice and intentionality is critical. And young kids and this week, and you all were out there earlier in the week, young people see when people are sincere. You know, that you may think that's a kindergarten or first or second grader, but that young man or young lady, they know who really cares. So we thank Zebra, and it's something that we've been doing now for 6 years at each of the Super Bowls. We identify a local school by some of our local legends to say, hey, how do we support the school? So we thank you for your partnership and thank you for caring.
Yeah, thanks for giving us an opportunity.
Yeah, it was a pleasure to be there. So we're going to open it up for audience questions in just a few minutes, but first we're going to hand it over to Hale and Adam. They're going to give us their own version of a chalk talk leading into Super Bowl, leveraging next-gen stats, which are fueled by Zebra.
That's right. We're excited. Well, Hale, what do you think? A special edition of Zebra Sports Network, Talk Data to Me?
Let's do it.
All right, let's go down here to the board. Hale, you might know a thing or two about football. You played on 4 teams that went to the national championship with Alabama under coach Nick Saban. You then go on to the NFL. You play at the Colts. You play in Washington, Troy Vincent. And then you go on to Minnesota, retire with the Vikings. So as a player, as a former player, tell me about, when you look at the data, what storylines do you see?
Yeah, no, I think some of the most important storylines that are going to be really important for this game is the edge. That's certainly something I want to highlight. The offensive line versus the pass rushers, and then the receivers versus the secondary. Certainly you're going to see that play throughout the game. And, you know, I really don't think it's going to be a Stafford and Burrow duel. It could be, but I think that's going to be to the extent to which their team allows them to duel it out. You know, really as we move forward, you know, I really want to just put in your mind something that Coach Saban used to always tell us. And if I'm going against Adam, I could draw a 3-yard box, right? I just need to win my individual matchup. And I think that's something that is going to be really important for this game, is having each player win their individual matchup. And we have the data and the stats to really highlight that and highlight those individual matchups. And we're going to get into that today.
Let's take a look here. So we've got offense, defense, special teams. Tell me, what pops out on the board? Where do you think we should be focusing here?
Yeah, I'd like to draw your attention all the way to the bottom left corner here. I think this is a very important storyline for the entire game. Joe Burrow, most sacks in the regular season with 51 and the 5th highest sack rate of 8.9%. If I'm a Rams defender, especially that touted defensive line, I'm taking a look at that, and I'm geared up. I'm ready to go for this game. It's no secret that the Bengals have had some problems with the offensive line, and the Rams have a couple of all-pros on that defensive line. So pay attention to that. Also want to keep in mind here, just the 4th down conversion attempts. Both teams haven't done too many 4th down conversion attempts, but that's really going to be something important for this game, especially as we look at doing things out of the ordinary, right? You might have to go for it on 4th and 4, 4th and 5. You're going to have to take those risks in order to win a Super Bowl championship. So be on the watch for that. Take a look at that. Also want to look at the defense. The blitz rate is going to be very important. Both quarterbacks have struggled facing blitz, facing the pressure. As you can see, the Bengals have a blitz rate 7th lowest in the NFL and have pressured on 24.5% of downs as the defense. Same with the Rams, 22.8%. And so as you really see here, what's going to be important is, does the defense continue to follow that trend? Is that where the data is going to take us? And really that's going to be a driving story for this game, seeing how much if they ratchet up that defense. If not, you can't really give the quarterbacks time to throw because they can pick you apart. Taking a look at special teams, obviously everyone knows about Evan McPherson's late game heroics. He's done a great job all year, but really want to talk about that average 2.3 field goals per game, which is 2nd highest in the NFL. Really look to these games are really won on special teams, right? The offense and defense are going to do their thing, but really as we look at it, the special team is going to be the outlier. Matt Gay for the Rams has made a couple of clutch kicks as well, so look for a duel there. I think we'll see that pan out nicely.
All right. What type of team is Cincinnati?
Yeah, so I really think they're a team of destiny. As we look at their record in 2019, right? They were 2-14. 2020, an okay year. Joe Burrow tears his ACL, and the next year in the Super Bowl. It really seems like the stars have aligned for them really, really well. And what about the Rams? What would you say about them?
All right. Well, I'd start with whose house? Rams house. If you know, you know. But certainly, we go 54 years without a home field advantage, and now we are back-to-back. Certainly, last year in Tampa Bay, we've got a win. Certainly we know home field advantage counts in the regular season, the postseason, certainly here at the Super Bowl. The other thing that I would like to draw on with the Rams is the fact that they are a data analytics hungry ball club. If you look at it, they're structured with a director of sports performance, strength and conditioning coach. They have a culture where the players have embraced player tracking and data analytics. And then you have a head coach that is big on the data. They realize that it's a tool, a part of the recipe for success. Certainly Zebra Technologies is proud to have a relationship with the Los Angeles Rams, and the fact that they are a practice client that utilize our game day tracking solution as their practice solution. So I think we're going to see big things. Certainly it's exciting to see the tools that they're putting together to come here and be here at the Super Bowl. All right, so let's go ahead and let's talk about quarterbacks. Now, certainly, Hale, pop quiz for you. Mac Jones, Dwayne Haskins, Case Keenum, Kirk Cousins, Andrew Luck, and Jacoby Brissett. What do they all have in common?
I was lucky enough to either catch a touchdown in a game or a practice from all those quarterbacks. And, one thing I really want to highlight is just getting to take a look inside the mind of quarterbacks like that and really understanding the position and what's needed to have success on Sunday. I want to just go right into stats about Joe Burrow here. One thing, obviously, as we talk about, the Rams are going to blitz and pressure and get some pressure on that offensive line that has struggled this year. But Joe Burrow has a way to combat that. 6th fastest time to throw in the NFL. He's getting the ball out of his hands into the hands of his playmakers like Jamar Chase, where he can do his thing and be explosive off the line of scrimmage. But also, Joe is making really tough throws look easy. And as we look at CPOE, completion percentage over expected, that's what that stat is. He is the leader in the regular season at almost 6%. So he's making tough throws look really easy, and we're able to track those stats and that data. And, that's really a good thing because, I'll throw another Coach Saban quote out there. In a game like the Super Bowl or the national championship, these games are really won with players doing their ordinary job in an extraordinary way. No one needs to go outside of their own means. They just need to do their job to the extent to which they can do it. And that's something that both of these quarterbacks are really going to have to highlight is, let's just do our job. Everyone calm down. Let's get in the huddle. Let's do our job. And Joe Burrow has been Joe Cool all season, and, Rams are going to look to disrupt that. On the Rams side of the ball, obviously, Matthew Stafford has had a heck of a career, and he's really looking to put the icing on the cake of hopefully a Hall of Fame career. Stafford finished the year with plus 89.1 pass EPA against the blitz, the highest ever in the next-gen stats era. He's done an incredible job there. And, again, both these quarterbacks have struggled against the blitz, so we'll see which team is able to give their quarterback the best chance to win.
No, very good. And certainly what's exciting as we talk about the data that fuels next-gen stats is the sense that there's a tag in the football. The players are wearing RFID tags embedded into their shoulder pads, and that in one play, there's going to be over 200 different data points that the folks at Next Gen Stats are going to be able to ingest and then produce. You go back, as Troy indicated, 8 years ago, you didn't have completion percentage over expected. You didn't have that for rushing yards, percentage over. So that is the really neat, exciting part that Zebra Technology is playing that part by delivering that data to Next Gen Stats. Before we move off quarterbacks, tell me, who threw the hardest pass to you during your playing days?
What's really funny about the NFL is, the quarterbacks have such velocity. And, as a receiver, it's kind of as you move through each progression, it's you step up, each quarterback has their own unique ability to fit the ball in a tight window, to throw it with such velocity. I'd have to give it to Andrew Luck. That guy had an absolute cannon, and he threw it very hard in your hands, felt it after the fact.
Yes, and we have the data to stand by that as well. All right, let's talk about some of these weapons that Joe Cool and Matthew Stafford are going to be throwing to. Certainly Jamar Chase, Cincinnati. Talk about how special that relationship is there.
Yeah, like you said, it's a college connection that is really strong, and you've seen that this year for him to be able to plug and play and come right in and do a great job. He's tied for the league lead, including playoffs, with 11 touchdowns on vertical routes this season. And, he's really a master of the red line being the area between the numbers and the out-of-bounds line. He holds that line really well. Joe does a great job of dropping the ball in there and giving him a chance to succeed where only Jamar can succeed. Also, when he gets the ball in his hands, he's got lightning speed. He's the fastest speed by a ball carrier this postseason at 21.66 miles per hour. And when he gets the ball in his hands, he's a yak monster. He finds a way to break tackles and make explosive plays. He's got 2 of the top 20 most yards after catch over expected plays. And the Rams are really going to look to try and get him down with a first or second tackler.
Well, now certainly the Rams have a couple offensive weapons at their disposal. They pick up OBJ. You have Cooper Kupp continuing to deliver. We see there that he's ability at 3.6 yards of separation, tied for 14th. It makes a difference on the playing field. Tell us a little bit about the impact OBJ's had for the Rams.
Yeah, I mean, a great pickup. Robert Woods obviously got hurt. They dipped into Cleveland's team and were able to get OBJ, and he's done a great job. You know, he has all-pro talent, and you can see each week he's getting a little bit more comfortable with Stafford and doing a really good job of getting separation. As you can see here, yards per route run has increased from 1.3 to 2.5. So they're really trusting him more. They're giving him more opportunities, and as you can see, his average separation increased from 2.6 to 3.6%. Really he's doing a really good job, and look for OBJ to be able to make a couple of wow plays like he did against the 49ers, and certainly he's going to need to have a big game as the Bengals look to take away Cooper Kupp. I'm sure he really wants this one badly, and look for him to be an X factor in this game.
All right, well, let's turn our attention to defense. Now, there's a legendary coach, Paul Bear-Bryant. You may have heard of him once or twice.
A couple times.
But he talked about offense sells tickets, defense wins championships. Now, we know both teams have put up numbers throughout the year. Certainly, you look at the Rams, they've probably got 3 future Hall of Famers on that defense. But certainly, both teams have had some good games. They've had some not-so-good games. What should we look out for here?
Yeah, like I mentioned earlier in the beginning, it really starts with the edge. The pressure leaders here. I want to highlight Trey Hendrickson and Sam Hubbard for the Bengals. As you can see, Trey leads the NFL in career pressure rate on third down at 22.7% since entering the league in 2017. Incredible efficiency on third down. And you look at Sam Hubbard, too. He's been rock solid, has done a great job of pressuring the quarterback all year, tied for 12th, but 39 pressures. So Cincinnati, you hear all the talk about the Rams and the defenders that they have, but Cincinnati's got 2 dynamic pass rushers as well, and look for them to be able to, provide that pressure on Stafford. And if you look, let's go into the Rams. Obviously, everyone knows about Aaron Donald, right? That 11th with 41 pressure leaders is oftentimes from the interior, which is a lot harder because he's dealing with double teams, and it's a tougher path as compared to maybe being one-on-one on the outside. So, he's got a legendary career. Everyone knows about him. But the main thing is that he's going to draw double teams, and Von Miller and Leonard Floyd need to ratchet up the pressure as well and be able to affect the quarterback on single-team blocks.
Awesome. Thanks for all that, Hale. Certainly, as the official on-field player tracking provider of the National Football League, we take a lot of pride in delivering the hardware and the software solution that feeds and fuels next-gen stats. We have a great team of engineers, software developers that have put in the time and effort for over 8 seasons to put us where we are here today. We have tracked 2,640 national football games. It is a great body of work, and certainly you can't have next-gen stats if you're not tracking every play of every single game, rain or shine, and that is the beauty of our solution using RFID technology. The other aspect is that we do have a great team, game day operators, every NFL stadium, the international series, and we have a great team that shows up every day to deliver at a high level and deliver that performance edge. So with that, well, Hale, I think maybe we should look into a podcast.
I would love that. Let's get it started.
All right. Therese, back to you.
The one thing I failed to I probably should have said this. So the evolution of the technology. The 17th, February 17th, if I'm not mistaken, so literally, soon as the Super Bowl concludes, we go right into competition committee and we do a data dump. And it's been fascinating technology, as Hale and Adam was just talking about, and how that, let's say, that injection to what the coaches say is the video telling us the same thing. So we literally, the 17th, we'll begin data dumping. What did we learn from this season? And there'll be certain touch points. And we actually now, we're much more informed on how we come to a resolution or rule change because of the data. So with data, science, engineering, we're much, much, much more informed on how do we get to DPI? How do we get to roughing the passer? Where was he located? Where did it hit? And the data tells us everything. And that has been, the clubs think they're smarter. They all have data scientists, and teams that they don't tell us that they got a whole department. We have one too, and we get all the raw data. So, but this is the one area, officiating. As we break down officiating calls, one of the things we're able to look at, because they actually have they're tracking as well, where was he or she when he made the call or they made the call? Were they in the right place? So this is just the evolution of technology, but we are a much more informed organization as we present things to the competition committee and to the general membership.
Yeah, and you're spot on there, Troy. If you take a look at the kickoff rule that was changed in 2019, based off of next-gen stats data paired with player health and safety, looking at the injuries from the lower extremities to concussions, they saw that if you reduce that 5-yard lead off to run, that you would reduce those injuries. So it's
significant.
Great.
And that's one to point out. What is Adam talking about? As you remember, most of us that have followed football for a long time, there always was a run-up to kickoff where the guy can actually move. But the data showed us, if you keep him in place, no running start, that you would actually reduce impact on the other side of the field. So this is what data's done. More coaches are embracing it. You still have some, we would say, traditionalists. It's like, don't give Sean McVay an edge. Let him learn and make the adjustments real time on game day. So it's been fascinating to watch.
Excellent. Well, thank you both so much, and thank you, Bill and Troy. We'd now welcome your questions. Sir.
A lot of great stuff, obviously, on-field, practice solutions, everything that these NFL clubs are bringing in from Zebra Technologies. We saw last week some integration as well with the Senior Bowl. Is there more off-season planning, like perhaps the Combine coming up, any kind of integration with Zebra Technology going into that?
I'm happy to answer it. Yes. So we call it Combine Reimagine. I just think with the data points, now that the colleges are more willing to allow us, for the prospects, to get more data, we just have to look at things differently. And the sooner we can get more information quicker through technology now than we've ever before. The traditional says, I need to touch him, I need to see him. No, with next-gen stats, we can get the information that's necessary to make the proper comparisons to different positions. So as we think through what the future combine looks like with telehealth, next-gen stats allow us to look at evaluations differently.
Troy, one question for you and then for Hale. In turn, it sounds like you guys are going to look at kickoffs and field goals and extra points again in competition committee this upcoming season. How much of the tracking, speed of hits and everything in that data dump is going to influence, how you guys look at that? And then you guys have introduced the past couple of years something called completion probability. We know that an 80 passer rating is the average or the standard. On completion probability, where do we look at as this is the average or routine completion, and then this is a, fantastic catch as far as the percentages on that?
I can start first from the special team. So we'll first examine, we had a 1-year only rule with the onside kick, if you can remember, just trying to get that recovery rate for the onside kick for the kicking team. We had historical lows the last 2 seasons. We're back up to about 18%, about 14%. Our recovery rate is where we feel like it's, if we don't want to say level in the playing field, but when we looked at that rule change, it was a 1-year only rule change. We looked at moving people in, minimum of 8 people, max of 9 on the recovery team, still making sure that the kickoff team was stationary so that you didn't have so we look at when does the impact occur? How fast was a defender running? The blocker that may be coming up, if you notice, we eliminated the wedge block, what we used to call the attack block, where you can sit, the ball kick, and I can come forward. You can't come forward anymore. All of those things were dangerous blows, but now wrapping the science and the data in, and you can see with the video that impact was something that shouldn't be part of the game, but the data that allowed us and the coaches and, frankly, the former players and the current players to say, okay, we need to make an adjustment because all signs are pointing not a good play. We'll be looking at the kickoff. You know, the kickoff return dipped a little bit, like to be around 40% on kickoff returns. It dropped, but we won't do that if we compromise player safety. So those are the two items. And punt. The punt play is the most dangerous play. So it's the most penalized play in football and the most dangerous play in football. So that is the one that we'll probably spend the most time on, the punt play.
What can you do on the punt play? I mean, the kickoff is pretty self-explanatory what you can do with punt. How difficult?
So the punt is interesting because you never practice the speed at practice during the week as you do during the game. So we first look at who's actually being injured. Where's it occurring? Is it coming from? And most of the time, it's the center, it's the wing, who's actually running downfield, who's an individual who's not normally typically making a tackle. So they don't have to make the adjustment. So you see some of the ACLs when you watch the video, you go, wow, that injury occurred on air, never touched anyone. So we want to look at that, and is the most penalized. They're always holding. Then we look outside, the gunners. Should we still allow the device, the double teams? Should we look at some of the rules that we've seen, like in Canada, Halo, where you give that the punt return a little bit of space to return the ball? We don't want to remove the foot out of the game. We think that's a dynamic play, that third phase of the game. So, but the injuries, penalties and injuries on the punt play. So we'll be looking internally, and then we'll be looking out on the edge.
All that's fueled by the data from Zebra.
No question, because that's where we start with data, with the data. This is what the data is saying, and then we mirror that with what's the injuries, where they're occurring, who's occurring with.
What's the most stark discovery you come to with this data from Zebra? What's the one you stunned you the most?
Of the data points, which one has stunned me? You know, frankly, which I knew as a player, the velocity in which people these big guys are moving. you know, so and then the ball, the velocity of the ball. You know, you can, as a defender, there were guys that had a touch, and then there were guys that were quarterbacks that were like, man, he's throwing BBs, or what we call it, darts. And you can, in preparation, a speed out versus John Elway is much different than a speed out versus Stan Humphries or Troy Aikman. The data would tell you that as you watch the video and you put the data point to it to say, I don't have time. In Jim Johnson's system in Philadelphia, we had a clock in our head. 1001, 1002, 1003, it was a good guess. The data tells us you got a second and a half.
That's it. The data doesn't lie.
The data doesn't lie.
Did you want to talk about the probability? So going back to your question about completion probability, so if you think about it, 2,640 games, and they're taking 200 different metrics from one play. And so they have a catalog of plays that are similar in nature, from where the position of the ball is to then the placement of the defensive scheme. So they're looking at the separation after 10 yards, the ability to create 1 yard or 3.5 yards of separation from the defender. So that as they make those calculations, they're powered with the relationship with AWS, going into the cloud, looking and breaking down that data so that the broadcast can provide you that neat and compelling story. So there's not one just simple answer for you, but rather it's the data being compiled and having a body of work to be able to go back to look at that toe tap in the corner of the end zone and the completion probability of plays over time, 0.013.
Can I add one other point to that? 4th and 1 probability. That's a big one where we've seen, just if you go back 3 years, about 40%. This year we completed after 18 weeks of play, it jumped to like 60, 70%. That 4th and 1, like the probability and data saying you should go for it. You should go for it. So that's one that you just say, okay, data is really involved in a coach's decision. But the 4th and 1, 4th and 2, we see it.
Yeah, and it's fun to that point, in the sense of how data is changing the way the fans, the teams, and the networks watch, coach, play, and analyze the game using real-time location services from Zebra Technologies.
We have one other thing that we're looking at. 'Cause I'm loving this conversation now. 'Cause we're talking
are
football.
too.
We're talking football. So one thing that we've been trying to track the last two in preseason is when the ball is punted, where the ball goes out of bounds.
Yes.
So that is something where we believe with the chip will allow us to be more accurate. Sometimes the ball goes, I'm like, wait a minute, he's spotting the ball, she's spotting the ball here. That may be the difference of 2 or 3 yards. That's a big deal. So that's one of the things that we're looking at. Is there a better way for the data or the tracking to allow us to be more accurate on where the ball placement is on a punt?
Okay, so on game day, I know you're back in New York, okay?
And there's a ball, so if there's a ball that's kicked out of bounds, like you're saying, are you going to be able to get that from Hawkeye back to New York, back to the Alley Center to make that, or is that what you're talking about here?
Yeah, we're talking about a combination of all, but the data allows us to be a little bit more accurate. Obviously, the referee makes all of those decisions, but with Hawkeye, with the data, we can just be a little bit, because sometimes there might be a 5-yard, that's a big difference in where you're getting 1st and 10, where the ball goes out of bounds and where where the
Yeah.
ball's placed.
Let me add to that. So
How are you
this,
going to apply that, though? I mean, on game day?
We haven't figured that out
okay.
yet. That's what I'm
So-
saying. So this is the proof of concept that we've been trying to work through.
So the real-time location services of Zebra Technologies is real-time. So we have game day operations in the press box. Our teams are showing up. We're turning on the RFID tags for a 1 o'clock kick on the East Coast. We're showing up at 7:30 in the morning before the players arrive. We're activating the officials tags. We reference the field. We make sure that all our antennas are pointed, the field's calibrated, it's game day ready. We then assemble in the press box, and we have a feed to our server. We will be integrated with the broadcast, but our real-time location services, we are watching the game live. And so I think, to Troy's point, there is an opportunity for us to be in contact with an appropriate NFL official to be able to say that's immediately that spot of the ball should be at the 32.5-yard line.
Right. And it's considering that there's the guy who's in the press box who can literally get in there and make an incomplete or completion call right away before it gets to replay, could be that guy, right? You could have that guy being in contact with you where you don't have to mess with all that.
Potentially.
Potentially. Because
But those are just some of the things that, again, the data, what it allows you to do. And so we've been bouncing it around. Our future football committee, that's one of the things that they've been focused on to see if we could potentially make some progression in that area.
I think our gentleman in the front row had another question.
Thank you. I just want to follow up on the Combine Reimagined idea, if I may. Are we talking about potentially gathering further context to drills that are already in place, or potentially adding data to position drills, for instance? Or what are some of the ideas there, if you're able to talk about it?
We've actually done some in international combine. So we're actually using next-gen stats there. This is where, if you look at some of the drills, and I'll just say it, some of those drills they have no game application. Why are we doing drills that have absolutely nothing to do with the game? Because somebody said we should do it in 1977. So what Next-Gen Stats has allowed us to do is say, what are the 6 most frequent movements of Aaron Donald? So we can take each position and look at what are the primary movements on Sunday, Mondays, and Thursdays from each position. That's how you want to measure the prospect. To say, and then you can overlay it and go, okay, Joey Bosa, when he came out, this is how, this is his numbers, or this is what he would do in comparison to Myles Garrett. But Next-Gen Stats, the data would allow us to do that. So we're looking at each position. The route tree. There's the route tree at the professional level. And some of the routes that we see at the combine, they never run that on game day. So why are we measuring that? So those are the things we talk about, Combine Reimagined. We have to look at, but the data allows us to do that. So
Thank you.
The back row, we have a question.
Good afternoon. So actually a couple of questions, but since we're talking about basically data acquisition, that's what Zebra does, acquire a lot of data. My understanding is that that data is now put available to the NFL, and I assume, to all the teams, right? So the process is like if a head coach wants some data, there's like a database that he can go into and grab almost everything he wants. Is that how it works?
Correct, yes.
Okay. So my first question is, I was wondering if you had, if you knew if there's a correlation between how much of the data is used by the coaches and their age or years of experience in the league. Basically, are younger coaches more prone to using the data than older coaches that have been done that for years and think that they probably know better than the numbers? So that's my first question.
I would say so. I would see the younger coach, and in particular those coming in from college. That younger coach is used to devices, and they've learned the game through technology. We do see that. I would say the veteran coach, even though he may push back, he has some data, folks, that is in his ear teaching him, though he may never admit it. But he is advancing in this technology world extremely fast. But no question, those who were born and raised in technology, he is much, much more engaged with the data.
There's an old saying that we use in our line of business here with player tracking, and it's the fact that you have coaches and GMs that buy into player tracking and data analytics, and then there's former coaches and GMs. They're realizing that there's a place for data analytics, and as we talk about it, it's a tool. It's part of the toolkit, and then it's up to each team to figure out how to apply and what's most important. But to your larger question, and to Troy indicating that the competition committee said all teams get everybody's info, and I think that was a great move in the era of the next gen stats and player analytics, data analytics, you put us on a pace for football of the future, which will result in lesser injuries, longer careers, and it goes into some of the practice solution that we deliver at Zebra Technologies with looking at load, looking at players hitting their max speed 7 times or 80% of their max speed in practice, and then tailoring the next day's workout so that they're tapering, being ready for Sunday Night Football.
So I have sort of a follow-up question on all the data that's available. If I'm a head coach, I know you have a lot of data, but I don't know what the data specifically are. And I might have a team of data scientists that would crunch all these numbers, only if they actually exactly know what these data are. And Troy was mentioning that you can tell which are the 5 or 6 moves that your D tackle or your D end or your wide receiver does the most, and maybe that's why they want to now focus on when they train, rather than running drills that are totally useless because they will never translate onto the field. So I'm wondering if I'm a head coach or position coach, and I want my guys to focus on specific aspects of the game that are more beneficial to them. How do I find the data? I mean, who tells me, hey, we have all the data available? Like, what's the process between basically acquiring the data, putting it in a database, and me wanting to basically use it without being totally overwhelmed by the I don't know, giga, bazillion bytes that are on the database?
Well, this is where the scouts come in. So typically, as a player, you won't get data. There won't be a data overload. The data that you'll get will be specific to you, and in particular, your opponent, the person that you may lined up against. So every club is handling data differently. Some it's all data. Talked about the Rams, and then you may have some, say a Pittsburgh, who uses data but may not use it at the extent as other clubs. But a lot of it comes through the personnel department. But when it's the players getting that data, example, the game ends at 8 o'clock on a Sunday night, and some clubs, by the time he gets on the plane and traveling, he is looking at data of his next opponent that has already been broken down.
And Troy, I would add to that, as a player, a lot of the data was given to us with, what we needed to know. So for instance, if we're doing game plans, scouting reports, things like that on Monday, Tuesday, all those kind of similar stats that I went over, we saw something similar to that. And, they were really trends that we tried to look at as an offense. What's the defense doing, blitz rate, pressure percentage, all those type of things to really, enhance your own preparation and study and things like that. So, up to each coach how much they want to give to the players.
Yeah, there's no question. There's super users, and then there's some clubs that are still figuring out what's important. I think when you look at the practice solution side, one of the big tools that's available is the return to play. If you've been injured and then you have a body of work previous seasons or 3 months before, as you go through your rehabilitation and the drills, there's folks that say, Coach, I'm ready to go. And they come and they look at that last few weeks or the last week and say, no, you're still a second off your time where you should be. We need to keep on going. I need you to get yourself back and ready. But that's what's so exciting is that all the teams have all the data available. It's really part of that sports science and learning the X and O's and utilizing the tool and resources to make informed decisions.
I would also say this to student athlete, if you don't have that, you're a foreigner. If you're you're at a Power 5 school, you're at Alabama, Michigan, Ohio State, Penn State, they're using data there now. Those student athletes are engaged and engulfed with data. And to come to the National Football League and that not be available, you're a dinosaur.
Bill, earlier you mentioned there's a fan experience that's part of Next Gen Stats as well, right?
Yeah, the fan experience is it? Yeah, so the NFL, on top of, as I talked about, the teams all have analytics teams, right, looking at performance and all the data around it and analyze that. The league does as well, as Troy said, focused on different things, fan experience, the broadcast, right? So a lot of the data is analyzed as well and provided to the broadcasters before the game. So they have all the statistics that some of the things we went through today to enhance the broadcasting of the game. The fan experience is done on NFL.com, right, and their site, Next Gen Stats, that ultimately provides a lot of player tracking data as well, the same kind of things we talked about today. And then as Troy said, other parts of the NFL, like health and safety and others, also dig into the data and use that to be able to make decisions across the league. So it's fan experience, it's the teams, it's the broadcast, it's all those experiences, and then they're using tools to just ultimately look at the data and then say, okay, here's what it says to me. The teams are, somewhat secretive on what they want to go look at, right? They're not sharing across the league the kinds of things that are most important to them. Those 6 things that are most important to them, they want to keep to themselves because they think they have something special. But the league provides data across the league for things like broadcast.
So I have a third and last question, if I may. And we already touched about that a little bit. So you tag some footballs with RFID. And my question is, how close or how far are we from being able to actually using that technology to get rid of the chains? And what is basically the accuracy you have on the location of a football, especially when it's under a pile of linemen?
We get that all the time. So that question, and it's discussed every year. Keep in mind with officiating where the ball may be one place, but the runner's being tagged where that body part went down. So his knee may be in one location, but the ball may be at another. So we too would like to get away from the chains. Really, we would like to get away. But there's some other aspects that we got to just keep in mind as we work through officiating. So working with our officials on what's the best way to evolve from being, let's say, chainless. But that is one of the challenges that you have. And you see that shows up every game day. Where was the runner down? Where did he begin going down? Where did his knee hit? And he may be short a few inches, if not a foot.
And, there's some scientific and technology challenges to overcome. That football, it's a sphere, right? And so even though we have a tag inside the football, it's in one location. And to be able, the orientation of the football, if I'm a ball carrier, I'm holding it this way, or the nose of the ball is this way. We say football is a game of inches. No, it's really millimeters at that point. So I'm certainly hopeful, like Troy and everyone here, that we can get closer to the point where we're as accurate as possible. But certainly it's a human officiating process. But the R&D is out there, and certainly we'd love to be a part of it.
Any other questions?
You mostly talked about individual tracking, but is there also some possibility of team tracking? Thinking of asynchronous movement of the O-line or creating running lanes for returning of our rushers?
So when we look at it as far as 200 different data points, the O linemen, the big men are being tracked in practices and in game days, and there are a body of data out there. But yes, we can talk about reaction time to the snap from a defender to offender to the offensive line, and those are all out there. It's just a matter of what is being publicly released. Certainly, the teams get all of that data, and of course, in practice, they're looking at those things. But yeah, I don't have that specific detail for you right now, but it is being looked at from an O-line perspective or defensive line perspective.
Yeah, I meant more, thank you, but also like a team tracking perspective, like with all the stats you presented were like, okay, this player or the sum of the players had an average from whatever, but just it is more, after all, a team sport, like maybe some team tracking possibilities.
And you can tie all the data together for individual players. So all of us individual players, you can do exactly that. I can't think of a stat that they're deriving from it, but you certainly could look at the data and say, what was the position of, everyone on the offensive line? How quickly did they respond? And then ultimately, did they open the lane up or not? So every player's tracked, and could be tracked as a group as well. That's just manipulating the data and ultimately saying, I want to compare these 5 individuals and where they're at on the field at the same time. How quick did they react to the snap? Those kind of things. So tying the data together among individuals or with the ball, that's easy enough to go do. There's not a specific stat that's, that I can think of off the top of my head to go, tie the players together. But that's possible.
Okay, thank you.
Troy, you talk about how early in the week, right away, when you get into the office, you get that data, you look at the officiating and also for the
tracking. What's the first thing you're looking at when you get the tracking?
So there's a pre-snap, during snap, and post-snap. And that's whether it's the official or the player. Was someone properly aligned? Where were they during the, say, the motion of the play or in the middle of the play? And then where the play ended. Was he or she in the right place, or who else was involved? So those are the 3, that pre-snap, during, and then the post-snap. And that could be for an official or it could be for a player. If you're trying to track an injury, what happened? What was his actual movement? Who else was involved? So those are the kind of things that we look at as a unit as we track per player. And that's a lot of tracking. This year we had 41, if I'm not mistaken, we think we were at 43,000 snaps. So you're looking at that, over and over and over. And then those where there an injury occurred, you're looking at those particularly, you can look at those 50 to 60 times to try to see what happened. Did something happen mechanically? Was it caused by ground? Was it caused by another player? Body posture? So it's a lot of touch points.
We're going on and on. I'll stop, but I'm just curious. You mentioned the injuries. The ACL, for instance. I'm from DC. Chase Young got hurt towards ACL. Wasn't even really hit. Have you gotten some ideas about why those things are, why the ACL particularly, from all that data?
No, we haven't, and so that's some part of the science that we are. Most of our injuries, I think almost 60%, are lower extremity injuries, but we do believe they're preventable. Especially when you look at not just the ACL, but hamstrings, growing pools, a lot of that's load. And once you get that hamstring injury, it's hard to recover from that. So this is what the science and the data will allow us to examine. How do we do things better, smarter, more efficiently with the modern athlete?
Yeah, in addition to the player tracking data, today we know every time a player leaves a locker room, either in practice or in a game, what cleats they're wearing, what shoulder pads they're wearing, what helmet they're wearing. So again, talking about tying the data, and then you tie that to what surface, were they, in contact with another player, were they by themselves, what were they doing? But we know today what cleat they were wearing, what shoulder pads they're wearing, what helmet they're wearing, how fast they were running, what speed, what was their acceleration, were they by themselves, was somebody else there, and what surface they're on ultimately. So that's all being looked at, and as Troy said, 60% of injuries and lower extremity injuries are looked at to say, hey, how do we protect our players?
And again, every play, we always say, has its own personality. So like example with the Chase injury, very, very little contact involved. He actually went down before the tackle actually made contact with him. He was grabbing his knee. So every play has its own personality, and then you just dive into it and just try to see, was it preventable?
Very good. Well, thank you all so much for attending today. We hope you'll look for the next gen stats during the Super Bowl and enjoy the game.
Thanks,
you all.
everybody.
Thank you very much.